Well, I finally got the axle parts. They turned up. The axle's just long enough. Sportster Holly softail axle, which is about inch and a bit longer, inch and a quarter longer than the Sportster one, which just makes it fit. I've had to machine some spacers up so I can centre the wheel in the swing arm. This is the old Sportster axle, but these are the shims that I had to make up to go in the end spacers there. The main problem was there wasn't enough thread, or there wasn't enough axle bearing surface to allow the adjusters to go on the outside. If you look on the axle, you've got the new spacer in here which centres the wheel, but then I also needed the adjuster because the adjuster is on the outside of these, not on the end like it is on a Sportster. So that is the original axle adjuster with the stud cut off and a flat mill on the back. So then I can get it in, so the axle's just long enough. And same on this side, I've got the brake caliper, which is obviously in there. That's something else that I've got to work out yet. And then the axle adjuster goes in there. That's why it had to be longer, because this on the Sportster axle touches the swing arm. The other problem that's turned up now is the sprocket. The front sprocket was touching the casing, or the chain was touching the casing once I got the sprocket on, and I couldn't do the nut up because it touched the splines before it tightened on the sprocket. So I had to put a spacer in there, which now means I've got to put a spacer on the rear sprocket to align them up. As for the sprocket, as you can see down in there, there's a spacer on the back. The first part is the original spacer that goes through the seal, and the other one is to space it out so the chain clears the casing. And also the nut would actually do up onto the sprocket, otherwise the sprocket goes too far back and the splines stick out, so the nut won't do up. So that's done that. The rear pulley is obviously out of a line, so that needs to come out about another 5mm. Okay, this is another little thing I've had to make up in the mill. It's a bung to go in to hold the front of the seat in. I wanted to make it low, so instead of, you could just weld a nut on there I suppose, but it's not the best way to do it. The way I'm going to do it is to cut that off there, so you've got a bung, and then drill a hole and weld that into the frame. How I've done it on the mill like I normally do. Mounted it in the chuck and bring the cutter. Basically it's the same as having a lathe. If you can picture laying this on its side, this would be the chuck that would hold the piece, and this would be the tool stock bringing the tool into cut. It's a little bit more complicated obviously, because you need to hold the workpiece, which can be a bit of a pain, but it does work the same sort of way. It's just not quite as accurate. But I'll tap 6mm down in the middle there, so when that's cut off and sits in the frame, I can weld around the edge, and I've got a little bung that's almost flat with the top of the frame. So that's the idea. There we have the bung. There you go. started on the rear fender. Now I bought some brackets off of eBay, good old shop, to mount the rear fender. I knew I was going to have to modify them a bit because I was for a wider wheel, but I didn't realise how far out they was going to be. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that yet. I'll show you. As you can see, it's the brackets are far too wide. I was hoping they was going to at least be the right height, but they're actually far too high as well. So not quite sure what to do about that. I was going to put a piece of metal across here so I could cut this here and then bring these in, but that's not going to work because it fouls the swing arm, which swings out here. So yeah, a little bit lost at the moment. Going to need a few minutes to think about this, maybe hours or maybe days, but that whole plan is not going to work. That's where the fender's going to be. I've took the shock out, and that's the lowest the suspension is going to be, so the fender is now sitting on the tyre, which is the lowest it's going to get when you go over a bump, so that's where it's got to be, but nothing lines up at all. Well, I've got some idea how I'm going to do the rear fender mount now. Don't know if it's going to work out or not, but I'm going to give it a go. I'm grinding a shallow V on the end of the metal so I can get in there with the welder and get almost the whole thickness of the metal weld. Otherwise you'll just be doing the surface and it wouldn't be very strong. So it's 10mm plate, so I'm trying to, that's why I've had to cut the big V in it. Doing a low groove pass first, and then I'm going to fill it back up a bit later with another pass to flatten it right out, so I can just grind it smooth and there's no holes in it. Something like that anyway. All you welders out there probably know this little trick, but just in case you're starting out doing your welding, with MIG it doesn't really matter, but when you're doing TIG welding, or gas welding for that matter, I always bend the end of the welding rod. The reason being, well, there's two reasons really. One, the important one is you don't stab yourself in the eye when you're holding the rod, because you're obviously working close. You've got a slightly shorter rod, you're liable to poke yourself in the eye. And the other reason is you don't get hold of the hot end, because it is pretty hot if you grab hold of it. I mean, if you're wearing gloves it's not too bad, but sometimes I don't, if I'm just doing a tack or whatever. And yeah, just a bit of information there. The first thing I've had to do is extend the top end so I can get the two fender stays, because these were short, really short ones. I've extended them. Also cut off the back, the bottom mount, which is now on the frame, and that allows me to cut this and then extend it in slightly, hopefully to clear the swing arm, and then I can change the angle slightly to what I want. It's got to be lower as well, so I've got to cut some off. But I'm making this bit first so I can attach the fender to it and see where the angles and that are. It's a bit difficult in this little shed, but I might have to move the bike over to get back and have a proper look. But that's how we are at the moment with the rear fender stays. I'm going to start off with a fillet weld, or right deep root weld. Get right in there, start filling it up. Provided you've got a big enough gap, you can get in there to do it. And then we gradually build it up, back up to the white thickness. Go. New rocker covers. Well, what I've got to do now is give them a polish. Looks like it could be a fair bit of work.